Yeah, rolling. Episode 40. Man, I'm dying to get back to Tombstone, Arizona. I love it over there. Like, I think, like, if you guys have never been to Tombstone, Arizona, it's, it's famous, especially from the movie Tombstone with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell. And it's a badass movie, one of my favorites. But what made it famous was Wyatt Earp, that whole story of Wyatt Earp and the Earp brothers, and Doc Holliday was the dentist friend of theirs that was a badass because he had a lung condition and he was terminal. He was going to die. So not only was he a great shot, a great marksman and a gunfighter, but he was pretty much suicidal. So he'd rob. That's what you did back then. You just rob every once in a while, then you skip town. And Tombstone was the big money maker. Tombstone was like Las Vegas, basically, back then. And the Cowboys, it was a gang called the Cowboys that rode in from New Mexico and settled in at Tombstone, and they were badasses. They took over. I mean, they were pretty much the law in that joint. But they clashed. They clashed with the Earps, because the Earps were into law enforcement and they didn't like a lot of things that were going on in that town. But the whole story of Tombstone, just to sum it up quickly, it was only a 2-year span that all this happened with the OK Corral, the shootout at the OK Corral. And the truth about that, the shootout was actually around the block, around kind of up the street from the OK Corral. It actually did not happen where they say it happened, and not exactly in the movie. But anyways, you can actually go visit the real Tombstone. They still keep it up. They keep up the persona. They keep up all the original shops and bars, which is really cool. But I visited Tombstone and I had a blast. Now, weather was 110 to 15 to 18 degrees, and I stayed in the RV park with my dogs, went up there with my mother, and we had a blast. And I especially had a blast because I'm kind of a Tombstone nerd. I guess you would say a Tombstone historian. And I got to nerd out on everything. Now, it was during the pandemic, so even Tombstone had to close the bars. And believe me, they weren't happy about it. They are not for wearing masks. They are not for this bullshit pandemic. They are not for closing down businesses, because over there, most of their money is tourism, at least right there on Allen Street in Tombstone, Arizona. And you close those bars, you close those shops, cigar shops, whatever. You close the little Tombstone shows they have. They're starving. They're dead in the water. So they could not stop business, but they did have to close the doors. They were forced to close the doors. But so I was there during the pandemic, and all I wanted to do was go into the Oriental was the big gamblers bar, shoot, whiskey drinking, dancing, pianos, and gambling. And so I wanted to go in there and have a drink. They had it locked up, but there were people still in there. So what they were doing, they were still able to serve drinks to go. So I begged him. I go, I just want to have one drink at your bar. I just want to come in, have one drink in the bar. And the lady actually let me. And that was pretty awesome. So I sat there, but she was like, I have to give it to you in a to-go jug. So I got a giant jug full of whiskey. And Tombstone is fairly inexpensive. So the dollar goes a lot farther in Tombstone, Arizona than it does, say, in Phoenix, or even especially here in Long Beach, California. The dollar goes a lot farther. So I got to sit there and have a drink and hang out with this bartender who was kind of a good-looking middle-aged woman, and she had the outfit on with her boobs all pushed up in the bustle. And if you guys don't know what a bustle is, it's what women used to wear under the dress that kind of made their butt come out. Very uncomfortable, but that's what they used. So I guess nowadays they make your butt come out. You wear these pants that lift your cheeks up. Back then they had a bustle, and it wouldn't actually make your actual ass come out. It would just give you kind of a fake lump back there, which is silly. But yeah, it was awesome. And open carry, so I'm carrying a gun. That's awesome. I get to carry my 5-shooter, so I just carried a little 5-shooter in the back of my pants. Sometimes I wore a holster, and I carried around a jug of whiskey and nerded out on everything Tombstone had to offer. And I loved it. Loved every second of it. Now, because of the pandemic, tourism was way down, so it cleared out around about 6 o'clock. And it's just me walking up the streets. And to be honest, that was actually pretty cool. It was actually pretty cool. Let's put my dogs back in the RV with the air conditioning, and I do my tourism act. And I sat there across, you got the Birdhouse Theater, which was the one place to see entertainment for the most part. The Birdhouse Theater was the spot to see shows. And you'd see little comedy acts. You'd see plays, which is basically all they have to offer, juggling, things like that. And the audience members would actually shoot at the performers. They would actually shoot at the performers. Now, they never actually hit the performer, but they'd literally shoot at him. They'd even shoot into the ceiling when they're applauding. And there's over 135 slugs still stuck in the bar area of the theater, near the stage, in the ceiling. And I got to do a tour of the theater. Now I think they kind of ruined the theater by putting some items and things just to look at in the middle of the theater, but you still get the idea, and you get to watch backstage. And they even had an underground poker game that was going on during the Birdcage Theater, and there was all kinds of fights going on down there. There was prostitution. There was all kinds of stuff. And by the way, most women that had to make $1, the only way they could make $1 was prostitution. So, being a bird of the night, it wasn't necessarily frowned upon as it is nowadays, because a woman had to make $1. So, but very interesting going back, and you see the dressing rooms. They had the downstairs dressing rooms, and they were small. They were small, but they still had some of the original clothing, in theory, is what they had. And they had a lot of the portraits of the actors and actresses that would come through the theater. And that was the big spot, man. And the gang, the Cowboys, they would, during those 2 years, they would fill up half the room. They were rowdy. They had they had a lot to do with a lot of the money that came in through there. They made a lot of money. So it was very interesting, to say the least, at that time. So I think a lot of the normal people that would show up, I think a lot of times were kind of bullied out of their seat. I really believe that. I know some of the books I've read, and even in the movie, I guess they kind of show it, where they do show them bullying people out of the seats and just kind of being rowdy. But interesting time at that time, you know what I mean? It's a fight, a gunfight. Now, they would definitely fist fight. They don't document a lot of that, but they would definitely have a fist fight. But a lot of fights would end in a gunfight. And if it was a fair gunfight, then you just give up your guns, and you got to see it in court. But if it's a fair fight, it's a fair fight. Now, if you just shot somebody in the back of the head, or then you're definitely going to do some jail time, maybe even hang if you did something cowardly like that, they would call it. And even if, especially if you stole a horse, oh my God. And how I look at it these days, when you steal a car, that's like stealing someone's horse. And you definitely got hung. You got strung up for that because, especially back then, though, everything was on your horse. Your horse was your life. That was the only way you can get around. That was you had your belongings in there. If you weren't, a lot of guys, you had to have a lot of money at that time to get a place to live. And the places to live back then, you can see in Tombstone, they have some of the houses of Wyatt Earp and Virgil Earp and Doc Holliday where they stayed, and these were tiny little places, but they were big for back then. They were definitely smaller than my apartment. So sometimes, but they were busy. They had to get out and try to earn some money. So, but you had to be a hustler. So a lot of times, I think to make a honest living, you had to get into some gambling, some prostitution. You really had to. A lot of people were selling cattle, and there was a big mining community. That was big. Gold was big. So all the miners would get out there and start shaking pans and trying to get some gold to sell. And then when the Colt revolver came around, selling bullets, selling things like that, and everybody had a gun because, well, you had to. That was just, you need to defend yourself. And so fair fights were fair fights, but and what's funny is if you've ever seen the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West, it's funny. It's a funny movie. It's by Seth MacFarlane that does Family Guy. But anyways, he's the pussy of the Old West, which they definitely had to have some pussies. Not everybody was this, great gunfighter. Not everybody was Doc Holliday. But anyways, Tombstone, Arizona is it's an interesting, and that era of the period of 2 years when all that went down was, it's very interesting. It was only 2 years, so it's like, here I'm looking in. I want to make sure I'm trying to look and see because, never mind. But yeah, it was I love it over there. Tombstone, Arizona, man. I loved it. Sitting around drinking whiskey. I even got to, quote unquote, get snuck into this the cigar club, and I forget what the cigar club was called, but I saw a couple older gentlemen in there having a cigar when I was walking by, and I knocked on the window, and here's the running joke. When they go, I go, hey man, I from out of town. I wanted to come in and see if I can have a stick with you guys, And they go, oh man, like we got to be closed. I go, well, I understand that, but I'd like to buy a stick. I'll pay a little extra too. They didn't charge me extra, but they allowed me to come in. I got to talk to these two old gentlemen and the guy that was running the cigar club, and I got to hear all about Tombstone and about the modern day Tombstone and how they keep it going. So Tombstone they call it the city that never dies, the toughest town in Arizona. And it's because people have tried to burn down Tombstone and the surrounding areas many times. Now, back in the day, they would burn it down. They would burn down joints for other reasons, for retaliation, for all kinds of reasons. But now, sometimes just some dumbass kid will fucking light something on fire. Serious, that's what they say. Vandals and shit, and people are spray painting, which is ridiculous. I mean, what kind of scumbag is doing that to this historical town is beyond me. But yeah, having some cigars with these guys was very interesting, very fun. I enjoyed every second of it, and I fell in love with that little town. Like I want to buy a place there, Like I want to buy a place there because they really don't want any bullshit. Now they were forced to close down, but they were not happy about it. Everywhere you turn, they weren't happy about it. And people could tell I was from Los Angeles. You know what I mean? There was the running joke was, "Hey man, where you from?" And I said, "From Los Angeles." They go, "Oh, well, welcome to America." And I go, "Okay, yeah, man, right on." And I hear it again. "Where you from?" I go, "Hey, I'm from Los Angeles." They go, "Well, welcome to America," because they don't consider Los Angeles America, because Los Angeles is very, very liberal. But I caught on. I understood what they were talking about. And but look, I can get along with anybody, But I really enjoyed that, and what a lot of the stories they were talking about, because the most interesting story is about a woman that they called China Mary, and China Mary ran all construction that would go on, because all the Chinamen would work on the railroad. All the Chinese were the Chinese immigrants were the guys that they worked, and they built a lot of the establishments there. They built the railroads. They built all kind, and nobody got workers if it wasn't for China Mary. And she also ran brothels. She ran whorehouses. She ran all kinds of business. China Mary was rolling. China Mary was the real gangster of Tombstone. And for some reason they don't write about her. I haven't read anything about China Mary. And I didn't know anything about her until I visited Tombstone and walked amongst everybody and spoke with people and had drinks and what's interesting is they have the old trails from the Indians, when the Indians would come down and have what they would say is little conferences with the white man here in Tombstone, and talk about a truce and blah 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 and how they're going to get along together, whatever. And of course, blood was shed. Some people went back on other deals on both sides with the Indians, but the Indians would come down in this trail, so I had to run this trail. I went out and ran it, went for a little jog, and it was beautiful. Deer everywhere. So, the deer out there are not afraid of man. They're not gonna get shot in this area, so they'll just walk right up to you, which is new to me, being a city boy, But yeah, anyways, China Mary was a gangster. Look her up, man. And she ran everything. No one did anything, any sort of business without China Mary. Anything that was built, because they needed the Chinamen. Now, I know some of you get all weirded out by the word Chinaman, but I think it's all right in this story. But isn't that weird, though, if you think about it? Like, you can say Irishman, right? You go Irishman, Englishman, but Chinaman is a rough one, But anyways, I'm going to continue. And Tombstone was a great, and I'm missing it, is why we're talking about it here. I miss it, and I'm going to be going back. But boy, does that weather suck, man. Woo! And there was lightning. You see the lightning strike right on the ground, just boom, from the clouds to the ground. And you saw that coming up driving in. When we were driving into Arizona by itself, we were just, it would rain, but it was still so hot. So sometimes you forget how great we have the weather around here. The weather is so good in Southern California, and that's why we pay the big bucks. That's why we pay a lot of money to live here. But I must say, the dollar goes a long way in Tombstone, Arizona. Now, it's a small town, just that small town, and it's way outside of any of the popular cities of Arizona, like Phoenix or Tucson, but I miss it, and I'll be going back. That's for sure. So what I want to do is go up with like a big party, because it's only in the RV park. It's a nice little RV park. They got breakfast for you at 9 a.m. But it's $30. It's $30 to stay in the RV park. That's it. That's it, man. Right now during the summertime, staying in one of these RV resorts you're looking at about $200 a night. At this joint, $30. That is doable. You know, $30, $5, get you a good drink. You're good. You're good to go. So, anyways, guys, I was having a little moment of Tombstone. Thought I'd share it with you. I'm going to get out of here. Cheers. Happy Friday.